Hey everyone, it's Mr. Barden here. I'm coming at you from a slightly different setup. I've got Bean over here helping out today. I'm just in the process of kind of reorganizing all my bits and pieces. I'm planning on moving actually over the summer, and I'm going to be restructuring everything anyway. So I'm trying different things, seeing what I like, seeing what I don't like for future videos. So for future things, you may see me in different places. All right. With that out of the way, let's actually talk about the content. So, after the last video I put out, which was, we'll just say a little on the long side and very little, energy. It wasn't a very high energy video. Wasn't very exciting. So we're gonna try to make this one happen, and not be too long, or at least not as long as the last one, and just hop through all of the main bits. If any of my students have found this video and are watching it, this will have everything you need for the rest of the midterm project, so be aware of that. With that being said, let's just do it. Alright, so today, if you can't tell from the video title, description, and what I have on the screen, we're going to be playing back audio files using our code. This is a very handy thing to be able to do. Essentially, what we'll be doing over the course of this video is creating kind of a virtual soundboard where you can click a button and it will play a sound. Later on, we'll be adding to this as we go, creating effects and chains and all of that, and just getting things, in a much more usable state. But for right now, if you just need to play a sound file, this is the sketch for you to watch. If you follow along, even if you don't really know a whole lot about JavaScript, you'll be able to again, queue up sound files on command. This could be a very handy thing if you don't necessarily want to pay a bunch of money to have a physical unit that you press. Maybe you don't like that or don't have the space. Maybe for whatever reason you can't go clicking through and find the files, but for whatever you're doing, you can just click this virtual button and it will play your sound. So let's just do it. The first thing we need to do, though, is include a new library, or new if you've been following along with these videos in order. So up until this point, we've mainly been using p5.js, the online web editor. I've got a sketch right here, and just like all of the other resources I'm going to mention, it's going to be down in the description below. So you can find this on your own. But we're going to start using one called Tone.js. We're still going to use p5. This will be just like if you're following for the course using p5 play, only we're using Tone instead. So if you head to this page, link in the description, and copy this little HTML code right here, this has everything we need in order to find Tone. So if I head back to my sketch and open up the file browsers, I'll head over into the index.html, and I usually just like to stick this right underneath line 5, and I just paste that right in there. Now, in most cases, we'd be done, but there's actually one more step to do in order to use Tone correctly. And that is to take this line right here, it's line 5 by default in the index file. It's the one that's linking to a library called p5 sound. And that's a library that p5 has that handles a lot of audio stuff, but we don't want that. I just deleted it. There's a few reasons why, but the main one is just that Tone and p5 sound cannot coexist in the same area. I believe it's just because p5 sound was made using Tone, and then having both of them makes all the things fight, and the computer doesn't like that. So we just have to add in Tone, remove p5 sound, and we're good. This being said, p5 sound is by no means a bad library. It does things just fine. I just prefer using Tone. It's more of a standard for building your own audio stuff from the ground up, as opposed to having things further abstracted. And it's just the one basically I learned how to use originally, and that's the one that we're going to focus on for this video and the future ones involving sound. But definitely check out Tone. I think I've got in the textbook under additional resources ways to do most of the stuff using p5 sound as well. It's just for me, it's a little more a few more steps, a little more complicated than it needs to be. So here we are, back in the JavaScript sketch. I'm going to create a folder and upload my sounds right there. So sounds. Oop, there we are. And I'm going to upload 3 files. But I've just got them pulled up right there. So I've got this one, and this one. Oop. So most of these are actually pretty small. They're kind of big. I just want to bring up that I'm loading in these sounds to the sketch instead of hosting them online, just to avoid any potential latency and loading issues, things having to buffer and stuff like that. We just get it all ready to go beforehand. We don't have to worry about that, and we don't have to worry about someone changing or moving a file location or pathway. You are limited on the files that you can upload into your P5 account, though. So just be aware of that. Every account has 150 megabytes of total storage. So having a ton of these might start adding things all up. You can check that by clicking on "Hello, your account name" and going to My Assets, and I'll just open that in a new tab. And you can see how much you've used. Oh, it's 250. I'm sorry, I said 150. 250 megabytes total, and then you can see all of them and what file they're located in, all right there. So just be aware of that. So I've now loaded this up. I'm just gonna move that a little bit bigger so I can see all of the file names a little bit easier. These are all just random files I had from other projects over the past 6 months or so, still on my computer, so that's what we're pulling up. One is just like a Chinese flute trill. One is a kind of half awake ambiance of like a hospital scene from a play, and the other is big reverby wave sounds also from a play actually. That's what those are. We're going to hear all of them in just a moment. But what we need to do first is make a variable that's going to essentially contain all of the objects and everything that we need to do this. So you can call this whatever. I'm going to call mine, I don't know, CD. People, if you didn't know this, we used to put sounds onto discs called compact discs or CDs, and you would read it with a laser, and that would interpret the music. If you have a hard drive with a disc in it, it's that kind of stuff as well. That's about the only thing with optical discs that I'm aware of that's still readily used by people. Okay. So, what I'm going to do next is call up function preload. Like that, and function preload, if you are not aware, just loads up all of your assets before the sketch runs. So this is very important to use, especially when you have larger and longer files that you're referring to load them all up in preload before you go into setup and draw and start having things, happen. So CD is going to be a new capital T Tone.players object. So in Tone, there's an object called player single, Player, and a single player can load up a single sound file and play it back. That's what it does. Players, with an S, like I've typed on the screen, is multiple single player objects all loaded into one, so we can load up multiple sounds. Unless I only have one or two sounds, I almost never use the single tone.player, just because I could just make a one players and just load up all my sounds there, and if I need to further differentiate them, I'll kind of play that by ear, but we kind of go from there. But once you've made that, if you go into the parentheses, and we're gonna open this up using JSON formatting with the curly brackets. And we have to basically give players two things. One is a label for the sound, so that way we can refer back to it by a name, and the other is the location of the sound file to play back. So what I'm going to do here is we'll just call this one flute, because it's in JSON format. And then the location, we are in sounds / and then flute dot wave, the waveform thing. Ooh, my computer's sliding around. Stay on the table. All right. So we got flute. We're gonna call this one hospital. Why not? And that's also in the sounds folder, and it's hospital.mp3, comma space, and last I'm just gonna call this waves because that's easier to spell than tsunami a bunch of times. Sounds slash esunami.mp3. Most audio file formats will work for this. If it's supported by a web browser, it should work. It's kind of the general rule there, but I have the most consistent luck using waves and MP3s like I have here, and also the OGG Vorbis format. I tend to have a lot of good luck with that one. That's a .ogg file. Basically, you can play whatever, but again, because you're in some cases streaming this audio, having smaller, more compressed file sizes like an MP3 or an OGG will make your life a little bit easier than having a big, massive thing like a wave or a FLAC. But anyways, let's move on. So we've got the sounds loaded. Now we just need a way to play them back, a way to trigger that, and then we have to connect up all the sound. Those are the three main steps right there. One thing I'm going to do is we're just going to make this a fun background color, because otherwise it gets kind of boring in this unit because there's not a lot of graphics to draw. So I like to make my stuff, whenever I'm talking about this, into a fun background color. But I'm going to call this function sound play. Now, there's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. Actually, no, I'm gonna do it the longer way just to illustrate all this stuff. So this will be function play flute. We'll make function play flute, and then we're gonna essentially copy and paste for the other two. So basically, we're just going to make a function that will play the flute sound. So we have to, in order to tell it to play, we have to talk to the larger object, cd.player. And this is where we tell it which specific sub-player to find, which file to look at. And that's what we're going to do, is give it as a string the same description or identifier we gave it up here in the JSON formatting. So FLUTE. And then, if you weren't aware, you can do this, and it's very handy. You can chain together multiple methods to be executed in order. So we can say dot start. Boom, just like that. And this will start the sound file from the beginning. I'm going to copy this and paste it just like that, and we'll change this to hospital and waves, and then I'm going to make sure the function names match. Waves hospital. So what I was getting at before is there's ways you can set up basically just have one function, and you can just pass in an argument for what the player is that we're selecting. But for right now, I'm just illustrating this concept. But you can combine this into a little bit less repetitive sketch. So if that's something you would love to do and try, I would love to see what you come up with. Definitely put that in the comments below. You can just link to the P5 sketch. I love seeing what people in the community and the classes are all putting together. So we've got these three functions right here. These are, whenever we call them, going to play the given sound. What I'm going to do is now make some on-screen buttons to click. You could do a lot of things we've done before with maybe a conditional statement or a switch function key pressed and set it up to respond to a button on the keyboard. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but maybe you're using your keyboard for something. as tends to happen. So we can also put a button on the canvas in order to use. So we're going to do just that. Normally, this involves a few more steps. If you were just using pure HTML and pure JavaScript, you'd have to make the HTML thing, link it to what's happening in your JavaScript, maybe play with the CSS to make it look pretty, do all that. That's a lot of steps. P5, just base p5.js, has created some helpful functions. One of them being create button, and what that will do is just create an HTML button and get rid of a lot of what we need to worry about. So we're going to be doing most of this in setup. I'm going to just say let, we'll just call this FL play HOS play and wave play. Let's call them that. Again, you can name these whatever, but having some kind of descriptor is very helpful. So I'm going to, again, make one button for that flute sound, and then we'll be copying and pasting this to edit it. So flute play, I called it FL play, gets assigned to be the result of the create button function. The argument for this is the text you want to appear on the button. Play that flute, why not? And if I run this, boom, the button has popped up. However, there's a few issues right now. The first being, we haven't actually connected up this button to anything. If you've ever done stuff with Arduino, it would be like trying to press a switch and it's just not wired up. It's not where you're connecting it, but it's not attached to anything. But you can click on it now if you want. It's right there. It's also not actually on the canvas. The canvas right up here. No. Click on that and save it. Is the boundary of what you can see on the screen when you're looking at everything here. So if I went to share full screen, it actually does pop up down here. But that's I guess that's changed since they originally showed me. But I mean, this just kind of looks gross. Why do we have this whole rectangle without and a button's kind of off to the side? Well, what we can do is position the button, is what I was getting at right there. FL play dot position, and that's a method in this case, and we just give it the X and Y location, 100, 100. And it pops up. If I save that, it's now up there. It looks a little bit nicer already. So that's the first part. And then the second part is positioning it. We make the button, we put it somewhere on the canvas. The last part is we connect it up and do something with it. So FL play dot mouse pressed. This just stores a function to call back whenever we click on the button. And we're going to use play flute, just like so. No parentheses there because it's a callback function. And that's pretty much that. We can copy and paste this. Boop, boop. And now we got HOS play. Next. I'm just updating the names, and maybe we'll scoot this one down by 100, and then we got wave play. Copy, paste, paste, paste. Move that down by another 100. Instead of play flute, we get play. That one should be play flute. This one will be play hospital. And last but not least, play waves. Yep. Alright, so that's there. I'm going to just tweak the sounds. Again, you can display whatever you want on the buttons, and the button will automatically resize to whatever we need to do. So at this point, we have now loaded in sounds. We have set it all up, so it's almost able to play the stuff. We have one more step to do left. Right now, we're not actually going to hear anything. And we've now made the buttons and told the buttons what to do when they're clicked. In fact, if I were to save and refresh all that, we can click it, and like I mentioned, we're not actually hearing any sounds, but we're not getting any errors either. The reason for that has to go kind of into some physics of everything that's going on. I'm not going to break down a lot of just the basics of sound and computer audio, but the main thing is basically we have not virtually connected the output to the speakers. So just if you think about it like this, if you've ever you know maybe used something on your computer, but the volume was turned all the way down. Though the computer will still play it, but you're not going to hear the thing. If you're, maybe your speaker was off or disconnected or whatever, maybe your stuff doesn't have a built-in speaker and you forgot to plug in your headphones and all that, it's still going to play and behave like normal. It's just nothing is receiving that audio signal that's being sent by the computer to turn it into sound that we can hear. To do that, we need to do what we did kind of at the bottom when we're chaining together multiple methods. We don't have to. There's multiple ways to do this, but this is the quickest. So if you go to the to where we made the tone.players, once you've made it, we can connect it to different things. I'll have a whole video, probably maybe even a video series, a mini one, about audio effects, and that'll go in a bit more about how we can route the audio to different places. But we can just say dot to destination, just like this, and this will connect up whatever you've chained this to. In this case, the output of all three of those players to the main destination or the main output speakers. If you've got headphones plugged in, it'll go to that. If you've got other stuff hooked up to your computer, it connects to different things. Whatever the system sound output is, that's where we're going to go. So if I refresh this, we're now going to hear some sounds. Bean, I'm sorry if this is loud. Yeah, I know, I'm annoying. All right, so let's hear these sounds I've been talking about for, 20 minutes. Let's play that flute. And then that's the end of that file. Here's some hospital ambience that's kind of weird and distorted at the same time. We get the idea. Some of these are a little bit longer. And then we'll start up this kind of wave sound to illustrate a few things. One, the previous sound does not stop if you start another one. These are two independent things that are happening. So if I just refresh that to get rid of the beeps and just hop up to the waves, I'll turn that up. I don't have it currently set up to record my audio playback, so it's just coming through the microphone. And there's a thing to stop a sound playback. I can just do this function stop all. Something I usually do, cd dot stop, and then we just call the stop method, and that should just stop. If not, we can do it another way, and so I'm just gonna make this stop button. Copy and paste this. Put it at there, and I'm just going to change the label. There we are. So now we should happen. So what we can do instead is just do this, because I got that wrong. We'll talk to the players, and instead of start, we'll do stop, and we just talk to of those. Just like so. So now we should start and stop. And then so now we can start and stop all of our buttons on Q. That's going to be the extent of what we talk about today. I'm going to have separate videos. Again, I'm losing my computer. It's placed on an angle on this mixer. I don't think I like this setup. What was I saying before my computer started making a run for it? Oh, yes, I think that's going to be just about it. I'll have follow-up videos about audio effects and how we can change the sound, different ways we can have fun with the playback and make the sound unique. I've said the word sound a lot, as well as being able to adjust the volume of both effects and just general sound level. We can have that happen automatically, or like with these buttons, we can input data using on-screen sliders as well. And essentially, we'll be able to create a virtual mixer just in the web browser. So that's going to be where we ended off. If you enjoyed the video, you liked the content, you learned something, definitely consider, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. It is very helpful. If you make anything cool with this, definitely share that in the comments down below. I love seeing what people in the community make. That's going to be where we ended today. So I'm Mr. Barden. This is Bean. I won't bother her. Well, any more than I have already. But we will both see you the next time that we see you. Bye.